Look, this is the preseason game versus the Dallas Wings where Monique Billings sets a real screen. Let's take a look.
Last year.
Catch it, shoot it!
Again.
Boom, she makes contact with the defender. You can see that.
A lot of shoes.
Caitlin Clark is wide open for a shot now.
Were filled last year.
Catch it, shoot it, Clark delivered.
That is a real screen. She made contact with the defender.
Plant your feet. Make contact. That's it. That's the entire job of setting a screen in basketball. And yet, what we just watched is an all-star center being told by Draymond Green and Candace Parker exactly how to do her job, then going out and completely ignoring every word of it. This isn't about effort. This isn't about talent. This is about fundamentals being abandoned at the professional level, and it's costing the Indiana Fever wins.
Caitlin Clark coming off. You see, the defender that's guarding Caitlin Clark is hit by the screener, okay? You can see that. You see the contact right there by the screener, Monique Billings. That frees up Caitlin Clark. That frees up Caitlin, and now Caitlin can get a shot.
Again, a lot of shoes were filled last year.
Catch it, shoot it, Clark delivers.
That's how you set a screen.
There's your baseline. That's Monique Billings in preseason against the Dallas Wings. Watch her feet. They're planted. Watch the defender. She makes full contact. Watch Caitlin Clark. She's wide open for a clean look. This is textbook basketball that every high school coach in America teaches. So why can't the Fever's starting center replicate this same fundamental action consistently? The answer isn't ability. Aaliyah Boston was the 2023 Rookie of the Year. She's a former national champion at South Carolina. She knows how to set a screen. The question is why she's choosing not to.
This is Michaela Timpson setting a real pick, making contact with the defender for Kelsey Mitchell.
Agent acquisitions who figured to start at the 4 for Indiana after her terrific
Boom.
season with.
You see Michaela Timpson make contact with Arike Agumbawale. That allows Kelsey Mitchell to come free. Plant your boots in the ground and make some damn contact.
With the Valkyries.
Even Maisha Hines-Allen, she even turns to make contact with Arike Agumbawale. Kelsey Mitchell now has a wide open shot.
Not available today.
Now look at Michaela Timpson setting a pick for Kelsey Mitchell. Same principle. Feet planted, contact made with Erica Ogwumike, and suddenly Mitchell has space to operate. Even Maisha Hines-Allen turns to seal the defender. This is coordinated, physical basketball. Multiple players committing to making contact, creating separation, opening up the offense. This is what the Fever should look like every possession. Instead, what we're getting is something completely different. And the film doesn't lie.
Look at Aaliyah Boston on this handoff. What? You did nothing. You touched nobody. You didn't even touch her. That's how she's still right there in front of Caitlin. You did not touch her.
Clark.
And Caitlin still finds a way to throw a magical pass inside to Aaliyah Boston.
Looking into Boston, what a feed!
But that is a bad screen, guys. That's not a good screen, Aaliyah. That's not a good screen. It's not.
What a feed!
Ring around the rosy. That's not hyperbole. That's literally what's happening on this possession. Aaliyah Boston approaches the screen, doesn't plant her feet, doesn't make contact, and just circles around the defender like they're playing a children's game. The defender stays glued to Caitlin Clark. No separation created, no advantage gained. And somehow, Caitlin still manages to thread a perfect pass inside to Boston for the score. Which actually makes this worse, because Boston got rewarded for a terrible screen with an easy basket, which means there's no incentive to fix the problem. Bad habits reinforced by good results.
Aaliyah Boston plants her boots, makes contact. She's even leaning on the defender. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. She makes contact with the defender. Pardon. Pardon. Hold on. All right, pardon me. She makes contact with the defender. Right there, she's leaning on the defender. She makes contact.
From Boston.
And because you set a good screen, the player that was defending you had to step up and show on Caitlin Clark. And what does that give you?
Clark bounces.
A wide open pick and roll bounce pass.
Boston on the roll. Lays it in.
Wide open pick and roll bounce pass to Aaliyah.
Here's what makes this so frustrating. Boston can set good screens. This possession right here proves it. She plants her feet, makes contact, even leans into the defender to create maximum separation. And look what happens. The defender guarding Boston has to step up and show on Caitlin Clark. That's textbook pick-and-roll defense. Which means Boston is now rolling to the basket completely uncovered. Wide open bounce pass, easy finish. That's how the play is designed to work. When you set a real screen, you don't just help your teammate, you help yourself. The defense has to respect the screen, which creates opportunities for the screener. But then, on the very next possession, Boston goes back to setting ghost screens. No contact, no separation, just going through the motions. It's like watching someone who knows the right answer on a test, but keeps writing down the wrong one anyway.
Now look at this, Aaliyah Boston. You set the screen, you got a wide open layup. What the hell is this?
That defense beautifully
What is this?
and delivered it
What is
to
that? What is that? That's not a screen, Aaliyah Boston. You over here playing ring around the rosy with the damn defender. Plant your boots and set a damn pick, man. That's ridiculous. Come on. Look at this. Look at this.
Beckers navigated that defense beautifully.
What is that? What is that? Come on, man.
Delivered.
And then, okay, she goes to set a screen for Kelsey Mitchell. She ain't even gonna screen her.
To Sam's
Look at this.
right when
She didn't even touch the girl. You didn't even touch her. Like, come on, Aaliyah Boston. You got to start setting some real screens.
And it's not just Boston. Watch this screen attempt for Kelsey Mitchell. Boston doesn't even get close to making contact with the defender. She just kind of drifts in the general direction of setting a screen and then moves away. The defender never feels her presence. Mitchell gets no separation. The possession breaks down. This is happening multiple times per game. And what's particularly damaging is that this film session with Draymond Green and Candace Parker happened right before the season started. They spent 10 minutes breaking down the importance of physical screens, especially for protecting Caitlin Clark. They talked about taking fouls if necessary, about making defenders think twice before pressuring the ball handler. Aaliyah Boston sat there, nodded along, seemed to understand every word, then went out and did the exact opposite. So what's actually happening here? Because this isn't a talent issue or a knowledge issue. Aaliyah Boston is too skilled and too experienced to not understand how to set a proper screen. Which means we're looking at either a coaching problem or a culture problem. And the evidence points to both. Let's start with coaching. Stephanie White took over as head coach of the Indiana Fever, with a reputation for discipline and fundamentals. She coached the Fever to the WNBA Finals back in 2015. She's been around the game long enough to know that championship teams execute the basics relentlessly. So why isn't she demanding physical screens in practice? Here's what should be happening. During practice, you run screening drills without basketballs, just bodies making contact. You run players into each other until setting a hard screen becomes muscle memory. You make it uncomfortable. You make it physical. You don't move on to 5-on-5 until everyone on the roster can set a screen that actually creates separation. Instead, what we're seeing on film suggests that practices are focused on offensive flow and ball movement, with the assumption that players will just naturally set good screens when needed. That's not how habits form. You have to drill the fundamentals until they become automatic. But there's also a culture component here that can't be ignored. The WNBA has historically been less physical than the NBA, particularly when it comes to screening. Referees call moving screens and illegal contact more tightly in the women's game. Players are often hesitant to be too aggressive because they don't want to pick up cheap fouls. That creates a league-wide tendency towards soft screens. Players get used to just showing a screen rather than actually setting one. And when you combine that with the Fever's youth and inexperience, you get what we're seeing on film. Players going through the motions without understanding why the fundamentals matter. The Caitlin Clark factor makes this even more critical. She's facing the most aggressive ball pressure in the league. Defenders are getting physical with her on every possession, trying to speed her up, disrupt her rhythm, force her into difficult shots. The entire defensive game plan against Indiana is to make Caitlin's life miserable, which means her teammates have to respond with equal physicality. When you set a screen for Caitlin Clark, you're not just creating space for a shot. You're sending a message to the defense that if you want to be physical with her, we're going to be physical right back. You're making defenders pay a price for pressuring the ball. Draymond Green understands this better than almost anyone. He's built an entire career on being the screener who makes life easier for Steph Curry. The screens he sets aren't always legal, but they're always physical. Defenders know that if they try to fight over a Draymond screen, they're going to feel it. That hesitation, that split second of a defender thinking about the contact instead of just chasing the ball handler. That's what creates the separation elite shooters need. Candace Parker knows it too. She played with and against the best point guards in WNBA history. She understands that the relationship between a screener and a ball handler is built on trust. The ball handler has to know that when they use a screen, it's actually going to be there, that the screener is going to hold their ground and create the separation the play requires. Right now, Caitlin Clark can't trust these screens. She's using them because they're part of the offensive system, but she knows they're not creating real advantages. So she's having to create her own space, which means more difficult shots, more energy expended, more wear and tear on her body over the course of a season. And here's the thing that should terrify Fever fans. This is fixable. This isn't a talent problem that requires roster moves or draft picks. This is a fundamentals problem that can be corrected in practice. But it requires coaching staff to make it a priority. It requires players to buy in. And it requires a willingness to be uncomfortable, to be physical, to do the dirty work that doesn't show up in the box score. The question is whether that happens before the Fever's playoff hopes slip away. Because right now, they're losing games they should win. They're making Caitlin Clark's job harder than it needs to be. And they're developing bad habits that will be even harder to break as the season goes on. Watch the film, compare those Monique Billings screens from preseason to what Aaliyah Boston is doing now. The difference isn't talent or athleticism. It's commitment to the fundamental principle of planting your feet and making contact. Until that changes, the Fever are going to continue struggling to create consistent offense, and Caitlin Clark is going to continue facing double teams and aggressive pressure without the help she needs from her teammates. So the real question for Indiana isn't about X's and O's or complicated offensive schemes. It's simpler than that. Are you willing to do the basic, physical, unglamorous work that winning basketball requires? Because right now the answer is no. And until that changes, all the talent in the world won't be enough.